Activist Radio is on the air. You have tuned into the Mark Harrington Show, sponsored by Created Equal. Mark is training a new generation of leaders to take on the culture of death and win.
You don't like abortion, don't have one.
The only thing that can be said to be objective truth is that there is no objective truth.
It does come out in one piece. It comes out in one piece.
I would argue that we certainly are not all created equal.
And now, here's Mark.
Oh, finally. You're listening to the Mark Harrington Show, your radio activist and voice of resistance. Thank goodness. Sunday, the muzzle will be taken off the mouth of the radio activist who will now be able to go back onto Facebook. Thank goodness. Starting Sunday, your radio activist, Mark Harrington, your voice of resistance, will no longer be put in the safe zone. No longer in the safe zone. I'll be able to go back on my own Facebook page and comment on things that are happening in America and around the world regarding the abortion issue. So thank goodness. What are we, 3 days away? We're going to be able to get back on Facebook. Now, I don't know how long that's going to last because we got trolls all over Facebook who are out to get me and shut me down, just as there are trolls all across America trying to shut down free speech. You know, and every week when I come to you, I often talk about the issues of free speech and the threats to American democracy and liberty in America. See, here's the deal. Without free speech, we can't have social reform. Without free speech, we'll never end the shedding of innocent blood. Because if we keep getting shut down, how can we get our message out? If we keep getting this put over our mouths, and if we allow the left and abortion advocates to do this to us, how are we going to be able to address the issues? See? But that's what's happening on campuses and elsewhere around the country. Unfortunately, last week, the American people were subjected to this whole NFL debacle. Now, I'm not going to spend any time on this, but I will say this. You know, we talk about free speech. People have the right to speak and all that stuff. It's true. If the NFL folks want to go out and do what they're doing and kneel during the national anthem, I guess they have the prerogative. But do they really have the right? I mean, really, free speech is limited if you work for an organization or company. They can tell you to shut up or you're going to lose your job. So we understand that, but they have the prerogative to do this if they want to, right? They can dishonor our flag and our country and our heritage and the national anthem. They can do that. That's America, right? The problem is that, the national anthem is like the final and remaining vestige of everything that's pure and good about us, that we come together at sporting events and we sing the national anthem together. And now that's under attack. It's become a protest opportunity instead of a time of unity. Now, I will have to say that Donald Trump, he kind of brought that to the surface. But the fact of the matter is, most Americans believe that there are certain things that are out of bounds, and that's one of them. Protesting during the national anthem should be out of bounds. And whatever happened to normal people that believe that America is generally good, that we're a cause of good across the world, that we've generally brought justice and peace to the world. There's still a lot of us left like that. It just seems like we don't get the megaphone these days. The guy representing us is in the Oval Office. Whether you agree with him on everything or not, he is the guy that's defending those things in the public square. Whether you, again, agree with him on everything or not, he's the man. I mean, he's out there fighting the good fight on a lot of these issues. And a lot of people blame President Trump. Just let me say this. These things that are being debated, so to speak, in our culture right now, the national anthem and all this other stuff, immigration, whatever, what we're seeing across the nation, these protests and whatever, a lot of them were blamed on President Trump. But you know, it's not his fault. He is simply bringing to light what is already on the surface of our culture. The strife, the controversy, the division, it's there. Most people would want to just hide it and put it away. President Trump is bringing it to the surface. He's simply just bringing it out. It's out there. I mean, we can ignore it if we like, but at least he's bringing it out there for Americans to debate. Now, I'm not going to talk anymore about the NFL. Let's just move on, right? Let's not give them any more airtime. But I do want to talk about some of the threats that we are facing and others who speak on university campuses. There are two examples of this that I'm going to speak of today. The first is at, of course, of all places, the University of Berkeley. University of California, Berkeley, again, is in the news because of the cancellation of what they were going to try to get done last week, which was what they called the Campus Free Speech Week. Isn't that interesting? They had to cancel the week that was devoted to free speech at the University of California, Berkeley. I mean, it's just a strange juxtaposition there. And so in order to protest that cancellation, a group called Patriot Prayer, sounds pretty, innocuous, Patriot Prayer, we're going to have a rally to protest the shutting down of Campus Free Speech Week on the University of California, Berkeley. And when they did, of course, the thugs, the mob showed up, Antifa, led by, let's see, her name is Yvonne Falarka, I believe. And she began a protest. Antifa showed up. Thugs showed up in their typical black outfits with hoods and masks and clubs and all that good stuff. And as usual, which is their MO, there was violence. Now, what makes this different is at the same time on Sproul Plaza, which is the place where supposedly free speech is, takes place at the University of California, Berkeley. By the way, that was where the free speech movement, so to speak, in the 1960s was launched on Sproul Plaza. But that's where a group set up what they were calling the Empathy Tent. Empathy Tent. If you would, Mr. Producer, bring up the website for the Empathy Tent or the picture of the Empathy Tent. And the idea behind the Empathy Tent is that it gives a safe space, right? A safe space for people who disagree with what's going on campus, where they can come and be safe. This Empathy Tent. And well, first of all, let's define our terms here. Empathy is understanding and sharing feelings with one another. Now, nobody should be against empathy. We want to empathize with people who are in a different and a difficult situation, possibly, or different than us, undergoing discrimination or anything that might be happening adversely to them. So we want to be empathetic people as Christian believers in Christ, disciples of the Lord Jesus. We want to be empathetic. But the idea that we have to have empathy tents on a college campus, just another form of what we have come to know as safe zones, where students can go and, they can have this sit down with someone else and kind of just talk about their feelings and how, their feelings have been upset by other students and others who come on campus and speak in a way or that might be deemed offensive or disturbing, and that they need a place, an empathy tent, to relate to others and talk about these disturbing thoughts thoughts and that are being brought out on college campus. The idea that we need an empathy tent to begin with is ludicrous. The fact that students, these are college students, these are adults supposedly, right? They should be able to handle disagreements with others. They should be able to handle tough subjects, and we are doing them a disservice by coddling them and creating these safe zones and these empathy tents. I don't believe that, I still think we should empathize, but do we really need empathy tents? But so this, you juxtapose this empathy tent with the Patriot Prayer event where it was disrupted by Antifa. And apparently the empathy tents erupted in violence when these 3 Antifa thugs, Ivan Falarka and others, got in a scuffle with the Patriot Prayer people, who are conservatives, right? And conservative speech isn't allowed on Berkeley. I mean, if you are a conservative, you want to speak on Berkeley, like Ben Shapiro, the university has to pay $600,000 in security fees to protect you. I mean, that's how bad it's gotten out there. But this empathy tent was set up, and it erupted in violence when these provocateurs from Antifa went in, Ivan Falarka and others. So if you would, Mr. Producer, I want to bring up this, if you would, bring up that page again. I want to show Miss Falarka and the 2 other thugs that got arrested. Now, listen, I mean, first impressions mean something. These folks don't look like somebody that would live in my neighborhood or seem like they're very friendly. They seem like they might be troublemakers. In fact, I wonder if they're employed or not. Maybe living off the government? Probably. I mean, those are assumptions. I know I could be wrong about that. But if they have the time to disrupt Patriot Prayer at the University of Berkeley, then they're probably not working. We probably know that. And if they want to turn the empathy tent into a place of violence, and they certainly need a little bit of remedial education in the First Amendment and civics. But I digress. So here are these folks, and if you would, Mr. Producer, play the video of Ivan Falarka and these 2 other thugs getting arrested, which is exactly what they wanted to do. These aren't peaceful people. They want to get into the headlines, and so they could beat their chests and talk about how they're anti-fascist, anti-Trump, and they're really standing up for the rights of those who are less fortunate. Go ahead and play the arrest video, if you would. Now check out the chaos that's happening here. This is Berkeley 2017. All right. Well, I think you get the idea. This is what happened at Berkeley. I think it was yesterday, in protest of these the canceling of the Free Speech Week, and the empathy tents were set up, and they erupted into violence when the Antifa folks clashed with the Patriot Prayer people. Apparently, there were 4 arrests. This individual who leads the Patriot Prayer event was protesting the Free Speech Week that was canceled by Berkeley. And that's what we have. I mean, we have empathy tents on college campuses, which I think is an absurd reaction to this idea that speech has to be regulated. We have to be keeping certain disturbing speech from students, and therefore we create these safe zones. Well, that's happening all over the country. Last week, I spoke about Wright State University and the students being alerted by an email. That's happening, by the way, this week as well, because we are at Cleveland State University, where the university sent out another one of these emails warning students that, Created Equal is going to be on campus. They're going to be showing disturbing images of abortion. and that if they want to find an alternative route to class, they've provided that, as well as counseling for those who might be disturbed by the abortion victim photos. Along with that, we have our good friend, the gender-neutral uterus. The gender-neutral uterus. Gender-neutral uterus, every once in a while shows up on one of these college campuses, kind of follows us around the state of Ohio. If you would, Mr. Producer, put up the picture of the gender-neutral uterus. This is someone who follows us around in a costume, a bright pink costume of a uterus. And she goes around campuses where we go, and she walks around in this gigantic uterus. First of all, let's think about this. If this is an alternative to normal, reasonable dialogue, nothing encapsulates better a reasonable approach to abortion than the gender-neutral uterus, right? I mean, if you don't have an argument against abortion, dress up as a uterus, I guess. I mean, that really gets your point across. In fact, if you want to interview the uterus, the gender-neutral uterus, which we have attempted to do ourselves, she won't talk. She just walks around in this bright pink uterus. That's their best argument. In fact, they don't want to debate abortion. They just want to try to attempt to mock our position. The gender-neutral uterus showed up again yesterday at Cleveland State. Now, she has a habit of coming around to these campuses. Now, I'm going to play a video where she actually did take an interview, but this was from a media outlet. So, I mean, I guess they're different than Created Equal. If you would, Mr. Producer, let's cue up the video. This is a very short video, but very, very informative, I think, about what's happening on college campuses. You either have this really extreme attempts at physical force and violence by Antifa violence, or you have absurd types of reactions to what people consider to be unsafe speech. And that's the gender-neutral uterus and other things like it. So go ahead, and if you would cue up that video. This is the gender-neutral uterus, which, by the way, is actually represented by the National Abortion Rights Action League's field coordinator. I mean, I don't know. Let's go ahead and play the video. I think it speaks for itself.
When we're talking about this sort of violent rhetoric from Created Equal, what we're talking about is controlling women's bodies and
stop right there. Stop right there. Okay, so you see her name, right, and her title. I don't know about you, but if I were NARAL Pro-Choice America, I'm not sure I want my field coordinator to be dressed up as a uterus. I mean, it kind of goes against someone really taking them seriously. I mean, how do you take NARAL Ohio seriously when their field coordinator, the person that goes out into the field and coordinates events, dresses in bright pink as a uterus, gender-neutral uterus? But that's what they did. And then she mentioned that, the violent rhetoric of Created Equal. Violent rhetoric. What is so violent about our rhetoric? Think about this now. We simply have signs that say the word abortion across the top, and below it have a image, a picture, a photograph of a preborn baby that's been dismembered by abortion. What is violent about that? First of all, it depicts violence, but the violence, we're against that. We're against the violence that's depicted in the pictures. We're not promoting violence. They would say, this is their argument, the violent rhetoric of our position is that we hate women because we would dare to show what the aftermath of abortion looks like. And therefore it's hateful to women, right? It's violent rhetoric because it would inspire people to maybe do something violent or what have you, because we would dare to say that women shouldn't kill their babies. Even though the signs don't even say don't kill your baby, it just has abortion with a picture. It's non-polemic. We're not making an argument. We're just stating that we're just taking a picture of the abortion and putting a word across it with the age of the baby that's been killed. How is that violent rhetoric? But anyway, I digress. Go ahead and play the rest of the clip, if you would, Mr. Producer, for us.
Of autonomy. So I want to bring this gender-neutral uterus to the forefront of this protest.
I mean,
so
she's even laughing at herself. When she mentions the gender-neutral uterus, she's even laughing at herself. I mean, it really, this is what goes on college campuses. You have extreme violence like Antifa, who wants to shut down anything conservative or pro-life or Christian. Or you have this absurdity, this lunacy of the gender-neutral uterus. First of all, let's talk about this gender-neutral uterus as an argument, supposedly. Anyway, that's the way they see it. First of all, is a uterus, can a uterus be gender-neutral? First of all, can you just think about that on its face? Can it really be neutral? First of all, a uterus is not a person, so I guess it can't take on a gender. It's an organ. So it can't be neutral on gender, or it can't be male or female. Anyway, it's an organ of a female. So it can't be gender neutral, right? Second of all, it is the organ of a female. So it's identified with the female more than it is the male. The other thing is, as she's being interviewed, that is the NARAL Pro-Choice America or Pro-Choice Ohio field director, she kind of makes her point, right? Here she is in a uterus costume. By the way, she usually pulls over the fabric, the costume, and so you don't really see her in there. But when she wants to be interviewed, she'll pull it up so she can talk to the media or what have you. So within the uterus, there's a person. So I often think to myself, well, listen, they're kind of making our case, because the gender neutral uterus actually has a person inside, which is our point. That there's a baby that we're dealing with. There's a person inside the uterus during an abortion. And the whole thing that they're making nowadays, that gender is fluid, that it's a continuum, and that no one is male or female or what have you, that, it's just a kind of a continuum, and you can change from being a male or a female, from a man or a woman, kind of goes against their entire argument, isn't it? Their entire argument is this, that abortion should be the right to choose for a woman. It's a woman's right to choose. Now, keep that in mind. And they still use that as their rhetoric. Woman's right to choose. But they're using the term woman, which is not gender neutral. So they're kind of going against their own arguments here. And if we talk about, if human beings are gender neutral, then this whole argument that abortion is a woman's right to choose goes totally out the window. There is absolutely no argument to be made. If you believe in gender neutrality and the LGBTQ ABCDEFG agenda, then you cannot believe that abortion is a woman's right to choose any longer, right? So they can't have it both ways. If they're going to believe in gender neutrality, as apparently they do, then they're not going to be also able to make the argument that a woman, so-called, a woman has a right to choose. In fact, I'll have people commonly come up who are abortion advocates and say, how do you know? How can you have a position on abortion? Because you're a man, they'll say. Because you're a man, you can't know what a woman goes through. And I'll often say to them, back to them, I'll say, well, how do you know I'm a man? And see, when you do that, it totally turns the tables on them, because they all believe in gender neutrality, supposedly. But when it comes to their arguments, they try to use the idea that we are men and therefore we can't really have a position on abortion. Well, use their arguments against them and ask them, Well, how do you know I'm a man? I might just be transitioning right now. I'm gender neutral. I might be a woman tomorrow, for all you know. So aren't you wrong to consider me or categorize me as a man? See, what they're doing is they are taking apart their entire argument when they use this gender neutral rhetoric. And so this is what we find on college campuses. We either find this violence on the one hand in reaction to politically incorrect speech like created equal or conservative Christian speech on college campuses, and that's what you're seeing on Berkeley and across the country. Or you see this lunacy, this absurdity, this attempt to mock us, which only makes them look foolish. And in this case, the gender neutral uterus actually destroys their entire argument. And this is why I spoke last week about the Campus Free Speech Act that's been now introduced in the Ohio legislature, which I am now going to be supporting, because we need protections on college campuses against these so-called free speech zones and the use of the heckler's veto to shut us down. That the heckler's veto has been used successfully at Berkeley to shut down numerous speakers. And that is basically that a mob rules. If you can muster up enough people that threaten the speaker and those who are involved with violence, you can shut it down. That's the heckler's veto. It's unconstitutional. It's the prerogative or responsibility of government to protect those who speak that might elicit those kinds of adverse reactions. So this bill in the Ohio legislature deals with the heckler's veto and the so-called free speech zones on college campuses. So to wrap all this up, folks, as you well know, we have launched our campus tour. Yesterday, we were at Cleveland State University. Today, we are at Akron University. And coming up next week, I am no longer a safe zone. I can finally take off. I'm going to take off the shackles, the muzzle, the duct tape. I am no longer going to be a safe zone. Mark Harrington, your radio activist, is once again going to be an unsafe zone. An unsafe zone for abortion activists, an unsafe zone for abortionists and abortion workers who kill preborn babies, an unsafe zone for those who go on college campuses and try to shut us down with the use of threats and violence, or try to mock us with absurd arguments like the gender neutral uterus. The radio activists will once again no longer be a safe zone, right? This is going to come off, and I'm once again going to be an unsafe zone for child killers. Thank goodness. Now, hopefully I can remain that way, but who knows? You know, I don't have control over some of the powers that be. So we have launched our campus tour, and we're going to be going to 33 high schools, 27 colleges in the next month, many of those in the state of Ohio, some in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia. It's a very aggressive schedule that we've got set up. We're going to be putting our Jumbotron TV on college campuses. So I submit to you that we're going to be talking more and more about this, the protections of free speech on college campuses. It's vital. It's vital to social reform. It's vital to bringing an end to child killing. And we need to keep fighting on the front of the First Amendment as we fight to defend the babies that are lined up for death. So, folks, if you want to keep track of what we're doing, please go to our Facebook page at Created Equal. You can see our events there and some of the things we've got planned, and stay up on our college visits, as well as tune in every Thursday. That is every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time here on Facebook, Created Equal's Facebook page. And beginning next week, thank God, we will also be streaming live on my own personal page when I'm able to take off the muzzle and I can be unsafe again for those baby killers who want to keep killing children and support child killing on college campuses. So 1 p.m. Eastern here on Facebook. and all the other media platforms. So we'll see you next week. God bless you. God bless America. And remember, America, to bless God.
You've been listening to Mark Harrington, your radio activist. For more information on how to become a witness against the evil plague in America, call Created Equal at 614-269-7808, 614-269-7808, or go online to createdequal.net, createdequal.net. Be sure to tune to The Mark Harrington Show next time for your marching orders in the culture war.